Well, it said computer lost input or something like that.
Yeah, it's like 20.
Yeah, it's where they come up that quick. That's good.
Is it the same projector?
No.
Seemed like it was smaller.
It was. It wasn't an NEC before either. Anyway.
Anyway,
All right.
Hey, Tony.
I'm Tony Bemus. I want to talk about GPG, PGP, and if you were around in PenguinCon, I did a talk there. You know, a couple people here saw that talk.
you had help though.
So that's right. Yeah, Kevin O'Brien did it with me. He actually filled in a lot, so I'm gonna try to remember what he said and maybe say something close to it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryder.
Yeah. All right, so the reason that I started looking at PGP, GPG is this whole thing around the privacy and the Snowden leaks, and just made me think about, you know, what's out there and who's watching. And not that, you know, I'm doing anything wrong, but still, there may be a day that, you know, you may want to know about how to do this stuff. So I thought I'd help educate people. The more people that are doing it, the less it sticks out. That, you know, encryption and signatures and stuff. So it'd be harder to track, I suppose. If everybody was doing it, then it wouldn't stick out on the phone. Anyway, so why encryption? So, you know, the whole thing. If I'm not doing anything wrong, then what do I have to hide? Again, just like what I said, that, you know, it's well, there's private stuff, you know, credit card numbers and social security numbers. You don't want people to get. So if you're communicating with somebody, they don't have, say, a secure website to send the info on, then you can encrypt it and send it. Or say you have a file with that info in it, and you want to send it to somebody. You know, things like business plans. There's been cases where big, large deals have gone down and not gone down because somebody else intercepted it and stole that job. And then whistleblowers, just like with Snowden and other people, you can encrypt it and send it securely.
But wait, is that to be a whistleblower or to prevent a whistleblower?
To be a whistleblower. All right, and then along with PGP and GPG, it's not just encryption, but it's also the confirmation of your identity. You know, for authentication to see who's actually doing the communicating.
Plus, it's fun to make them think you know something that I
Right. All right, so why did this come about? Well, initially, Phil Zimmerman published PGP in 1991, and his response was that in the Bill 266, the U.S. government wanted the secure communications to have a backdoor. So he wanted to create something that was peer-to-peer, and that did not have that. And from there, PGP is a proprietary encryption and communication. It's freely available for anybody to use, but it's still proprietary and closed down. So Werner Cook wanted to create and have it available for an open source. So he created GPG, which is the GNU Privacy Guard. And blah, 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 open source. Yay.
The two use the same encryption mechanism too. So if somebody's using PGP,
Same algorithm.
Yep.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
They're interchangeable.
Say that again? That was.
It's fully interchangeable. So if one person's using PGP and somebody else is using GPG, it works together. So how does GPG and PGP work? Well, they use a public and private key pair, and they're both symmetric and asymmetric encryption, where the email gets encrypted with a symmetric algorithm, and then the key, I get nervous, I get a hard time, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
anyway, it first gets encrypted symmetrically, meaning it's a one-way encryption, or one-key encryption, and then, right? I don't know what I'm thinking right now.
I don't know.
Let's
Let's go with it.
Oh, yeah, let's just go with it. Well, here's a diagram. So first you got the data, and you have a random key. This random key gets encrypted, along with the data gets encrypted, and then the two together is what is the encrypted message that gets sent. The reason why you have the two different ones here is because for quick encryption, decryption, it uses a lower encryption rate, so it's a fast encrypt. But then the random key is needed to decrypt it, and that random key is actually encrypted with your strong public or private key.
So the random key is a short piece of data that's encrypted really, really well.
Right.
With your private key.
And then you need the two to be able to decrypt it. And then once the message is received, then you have the data, and then you have the key. So first you decrypt it with the really well encrypted, so then you get your random code, and then it decrypts it again to get your original data. So, because we're pretty much Linux people around here, and I am, so I'm going to focus a little bit about how to use GPG on your Linux system. There's a lot of command line ways to do it, and there's also GUI ways, so it's easy. You don't have to do it all command, but if you have a server, a headless server, you can still use it on there also. And I use Linux Mint. There's the key servers that hold your public keys. And what I use in Mint is, these are the three by default, the Ubuntu, the SKS, and the PGP.com. If you have any questions, feel free to stop.
All right,
But
are you using this with email, are you using this with web
it's
traffic, you using this with?
No.
communications
With
between
your hard
two
drive,
people.
you're using this?
So mainly it's communications between two people. So it's emails or files that you want to be secure. So once it's encrypted, then you send it to the person. You can send it over email, you can send it through a website, through Dropbox or whatever you want. And then once they receive it, then they decrypt it. And you can use, like I said, either command line or a lot of these GUI programs will help you do that.
Yeah, I think an important thing to note is if I want to, if you and I are going to exchange emails, if I want to send Tony an email, I need to get his public key.
Right.
From someplace, either he can send it to me or I can go to one of these key servers and get it. And I use that public key to encrypt the email, and only Tony can decrypt it with his private key. Anybody else having his public key can't decrypt it. You have to have the private key to decrypt it.
That's right.
And so that's why the key server is a useful, important part of the solution.
It's all public keys?
Exactly.
The key servers are all public keys?
Yeah,
Yeah,
key
you wouldn't
servers are
put your
public
private
keys.
key up on the key server. The private key you keep private.
Exactly.
Is it like the public key is published everywhere?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's published on key servers.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with handing somebody your public key. They can't do anything with it other than encrypt things.
Yeah, they cannot
One way,
decrypt files.
Yeah.
It's very similar to SSH key concept.
Yeah, with a public key and a private key.
Right.
Basically now. But I still need a authentic way to publish my public key, right? So if I say this is my public key, so that still has to be authentic, because someone might take something else, like, so, but my public key has to be sent out by me in some
Yes.
way, so.
Well, I could send
Well-
out your public key too.
It's actually gonna cover
It's
the
hard to
public key
create,
servers.
keys, it's hard to create an identical key. So if you publish it and you say, this is me, then that's where people can see that, can grab that key. Now, you can say this to me, you can put it on your own website, or you put it on the these key servers. And the, I can get, let me a little more into, well, I guess I didn't put a slide on
It's
Web of
pushed
Trust.
sometimes automatically. So on the first contact, like, so like I think, means like we have few of the dots around. So
Right.
when I try to connect to a machine on the first go, so the public key is something.
You could, if you only wanted to send your public key to one person, you could email them
Yeah, you can send it to somebody and.
Directly.
Yeah, you send it directly. There's this key, so you have two keys.
I,
Public
we
and
can come
private.
back on that, so
The-
we got to continue, so.
Okay, well, it's,
How we do.
I'm not sure if I have a
It's
slide on.
confusing stuff.
I think
the-
you do, because you
Yeah, it can be
covered
confusing,
this
and I
Yeah.
think that's part of why it's not widely used.
So if I'm sending you something, I have your public key.
Right.
Right, and your
Do I
private.
configure my mail client with it?
Right, yeah, your mail client will be able to do it, or you can encrypt the file ahead of time and just
Yeah,
attach it to
encrypt it on the
email.
command line and attach it to your message.
Basically, like, if you had a Word document that you didn't want anybody to know about, except you and him, you would encrypt it using the public key, then you would attach it to the email, the Word
But-
document.
I'm just wondering, what do you use? So you I can use command line to encrypt a file and attach it to an email.
Right, well, command
Or I
line
can
tools,
encrypt the
so-
entire email itself
Right, so, and,
with a configuration in the mail client at Evolution, Thunderbird.
correct. Yep, and I'll go through that. Yeah, I'll show you how to set that up. Do you have a question?
Are these public-private key pairs, are they one-time pad, or can you use them over multiple messages, like channel communication?
It's always multiple messages.
Public.
So you always keep the same one. You can have them expire, it's possible to do that. But generally, it's like an SSL key where, you know, you have years of before it expires. Anyway, so to set up, in a GUI version for GNOME, which GNOME is, like, what Ubuntu uses for, you can either do a GNOME or Unity. And I think XFCE uses Seahorse as their default. You can just type, sorry, I know in Mint, you can just type in keys, and it'll start bringing it up. You can type in Seahorse and it'll bring it up. But if you don't have it installed, and you want to use it,
Well, his email.
you can do the sudo apt-get install Seahorse. It's fairly easy. And the same thing with KDE, it's KGPG. And again, it's an apt-get install as long as you're using a Debian system, or you use a yum install for Fedora and Red Hat systems. Or you can use the command line tools, which is the GPG keys. And for Mint, it was already installed, but again, it's an apt-get to get it installed.
Well, GPG is used for signing packages and stuff, so it's kind of a base part of the operating system these days.
Okay.
Right? Doesn't apt uses it to verify the signatures on
Yeah, yeah, it does.
packages.
Right, even on PDAs, they're signed, so you can.
Yeah, so the bare tools are already there for you.
Correct. So if you want to create a key in the command line, you use the GPG-keygen. And it's going to go through and walk you through a lot of steps, things like your name, your password, well, the password's the last part, I think. But, and it asks for a description. Be careful what you put there, because that's publicly seen. It's not just something for yourself. So I inadvertently made myself a handle, but then thought, I decided to keep it. It's Tony the Gray. So, but it's other ways, like if you have multiple keys or somebody else has a key a similar name to yours, and there's a key out there, you can tell somebody it's with this description on it. So like Kevin O'Brien has his, and it's the GPG is fun, or encryption is fun. So I know to look for that one when I look for his. And then you want to add in your bash RC, you want to add this line to put it in your environmental variables.
Yeah.
So what happens is, when you put your key ID, which you look up with this list keys, and it goes through this whole list here, and it'll show you that my key is this right here. So what it shows here is that my public key, which is using 2048 bit encryption, is that's the last 8 of the full key fingerprint. And then it shows the date it was created, my user ID, and my description. So this is my key. If anybody wanted to go out and find my key, that's how you can find it. You can either use the last 8, the key ID, or the fingerprint. You can search by name.
On
what
the
happens?
key, on the key servers.
Yeah, on the key servers.
No, I'm confused. Can you go back to that last slide real quick?
Sure.
Okay, the key DB47TTEE, you have it down there in white, but up in green, you have that plus more. What's,
So this is the key ID.
That's the
Right here.
size.
This, it's the same thing right here.
Yeah, but.
So what's showing is this, it's saying it's a public key using 2048 encryption.
RSA. I assume the R
Oh,
is
yeah,
RSA.
I believe so. With, that's the key ID, and then that's the
Okay.
date created.
If you did a list of keys and you had a bunch of keys in your key ring.
You get a whole list of those.
Yeah, you'd see a whole list of them, and you.
Yeah, you
refer
can
to
have,
yours,
you can
right?
have multiple keys for yourself. You can have one for each email address, or you can put multiple emails on one key.
okay, but the.
And you can have
but-
keys for other people.
Right, yeah, and your key ring, or, it would
Okay,
show
but-
all your keys, right?
Out of those three or four things you mentioned, which is the one you would use to encrypt your file or whatever?
It's
None of the above.
the whole key. Yeah, this just is a description of what keys are on your system.
Okay,
There's
It's just
actually a
telling
file
you-
out there.
And so you can see what keys you have. And this, so this isn't specifically, but what I'm saying here with this export keygen, every time you use the command line, all you have to do is put the $, GPG key, and it automatically uses that specific key that you have.
So it's like identifying your default key.
Right, yeah, that's right. Setting up the default key.
You lost
And it's similar to this right here.
You lost me, you're doing something on the command, that's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna get more into GUI stuff,
Okay.
so if you're not a command line person, just hold on a bit, and then I'll explain a little bit more. I mean, right here, like on the command line, if you wanna send the key to the key servers, this would be the command you use. So it's saying using GPG, send the keys to the key server, which in this case it's Ubuntu. And then you're saying use that key that I put in from that last slide. Because like you said, you can have multiple keys in your key ring. You want this to be your default key. And instead of typing out that long, or memorizing and typing out your key ID, the 8, that you can type this instead, GPG key. It also makes it handy for scripting. If everybody does it, then you can just say, here's a script, and it uses their key instead of yours.
I could have like fail-safe servers also.
Sorry?
I mean, normally it's one central server or this is.
No, actually, key servers are similar to how DNS works, where it gets propagated across the world. Key servers propagate your keys across. So you publish your key to one server, and it gets propagated across to everybody. So because I send mine to the SKS server, then Jim can go over to GPG.com or MIT off of their key and pull my public key off of their server.
After some amount of time.
It's, I think it's like 15 minutes. It's not long.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not long, because I published it, I waited a little bit, the same day I went and checked, and it was on multiple servers.
With everybody in the world using this, in only 8 characters, how many flashes are there?
Well, that's
Everybody
where
using the same key.
the 8 character at the end of the key ID, that's basically for what's on your system.
He's thinking about
And
the
you can have
entire key.
multiple, You have multiple keys, but you're not gonna have millions of keys on your system.
No, but
So-
what I mean, in the
I know,
key
no,
server.
yeah, I know, on the key server.
He thinks that's the entire key. but
No,
wait,
I
there's-
don't.
ID of
No,
He's
it's,
thinking-
what's your key ID, and your key ID is only
It's a
the
short-
last bit
it's a-
of the key fingerprint.
It's a
Last four
short
hexes.
fingerprint of
Last,
it,
yeah.
and then, yeah,
Last two
but
hex.
Last
there
four
are
hex.
collisions on that, you should never use that to identify.
Right, yeah, because there can be clashes, it's best to identify by the fingerprint, which I'll show you in a little bit. I'll talk about the fingerprint. It's easier if you're gonna read it off the phone, just look at the last 8. It's kinda like with MAC addresses on computers. You don't read out the entire MAC address, you just read off the last little bit. Anyway, if you want to back up your keys, this is how you go about it. Because your private key, if you lose that, then you cannot decrypt, you can't use your key anymore. You have to create new. So you're going to have backups of it. And you want to keep that backup secure, because if somebody else gets your backup, then they can act as you, and you don't want that. They can decrypt all your messages, they can send out messages saying I'm authentic, when it's actually they're not. So this is how you go about it. Again, using the PGP. And then restoring, you can import the keys back in. So say you have multiple systems. I have a desktop and I have a laptop and I want my keys on both. Then you can export it from one and import it back into the other.
A file.
It creates this right here, the secret key, or whatever you want to call it. You can give this any key you want, .key, and then you can take that file for someone else. But again, if somebody else gets it, if you leave it on your flash drive and you lose your flash drive, somebody else gets it, then they can do whatever they want. So you got to be careful with that. I know one of the GUI programs for your phone, for Android, is AGPG. Whenever you import your key into that, it automatically, or one of the defaults is delete your key after import, so that it's not just sitting there on your SD card while you're waiting. So now here, if you want to private, or you want to encrypt keys, you don't have to use your key to encrypt using GPG. You can use it a password. So like this right here, this is not using your key. With the -C just means, I forget what GC means, but it means you use a password instead of your key. So that you can give that password to anybody and they can decrypt it. It doesn't have to use the key system to encrypt and decrypt. But then here is using
Minus
the
C.
-E.
Minus C stands for cipher.
Cipher, okay. Then the -E uses your key, and this will encrypt it only for you. If you want to, because you're not saying who you're encrypting it for, then it only encrypts it for you, only you can decrypt it. You have to have your private key then to decrypt it. And then to decrypt it,
This
use the
would be
-D.
using someone else's public key.
No, it's using your own public. So you're basically encrypting it to yourself, and then only you can decrypt it. Instead of me encrypting it so you can decrypt it, you're just doing it with yourself, kind of like a
It's if you
loop
want
back.
to safely store something on your hard drive, although your keys are on the same hard drive, so.
Right, but then your key also has a password, so there's two pieces.
It'd be
there.
good
Or
if
if you're
you-
gonna use cloud backup, right, you wanna encrypt your stuff, send it to the cloud backup, not with the key, okay, so that everything up there is encrypted, right, and then if you need to pull it back, you can just decrypt it out yourself.
It would be good if you were worried about your laptop being stolen and people being able to get to the information.
Well, no, it's a little bit different, because your laptop's still, or the key is still on your laptop. If it's stolen, it's possible for them to get it. So you would want something else to encrypt your home folder, or the entire drive. And then that would keep somebody from, if they stole it, keep them from getting to it.
And we're using this also to encrypt the drive?
No, this GPG does not do a whole drive
This was for
encryption.
between two people.
Yes,
This is
this
for
is
files.
files, single files that you're sending back and forth, or emails, or, but this right here is for a single file. Just say, this big.txt. you know, this is a message you want to send to your lawyer, you don't want anybody else but your lawyer to get it, then you would
Use his
use-
public key.
Yeah, but the thing is, the way this works, you don't have to know his specific key. Once you import it into your system, you get it off the key server, then you
Get
just
what off the
say.
key server? Get
His public key.
his public key, right, okay.
Right, you get his public key, and you say, right here, you say encrypted, ES, means encrypt for Matt, or your lawyer, and then the file name. So once this is encrypted, only Matt, or your lawyer, will be able to decrypt
When you
it.
put Matt, it uses his public key, that's how it is.
Correct.
Right.
And GPG knows, because you've imported his key in, GPG knows that you can, or knows what his key is. So you don't have to say, I use this 26-digit key.
Right.
You know, you just say Matt, and then it does it.
So what would you have to have done to store Matt's public key on your system in order for that to work?
I
you know,
just installed Tony's public key on mine. It was real simple. I just,
Yeah, what,
So what did
This
you have
is-
to type? That has to go into your key ring, right?
yeah, I typed GPG space dash search dash keys space and then Tony Bemus in quotes. That's what
And
I
then it
searched.
searches
All I typed.
the- oh.
And it went out to the key server, found Tony Bemus, came back with a description, some information about you, including that 8-digit hex string, the ID.
Yes.
The end of a longer string. And it offered that up as a choice. I said, that's the one I want, and it imported it into my key ring.
yeah, so you can
And-
do it
and
over the command line.
in
There's
there,
easier
what did-
ways to do it with.
Where did you put the equivalent of Matt in there, when it was putting in your key ring?
I think it gave it a name of Tony.
If I'm the
Bemus.
only Tony in his key ring,
Yeah.
then he can just type Tony and it'll encrypt it for me.
But if there are two
That's fine.
Tonys,
If
then
he-
it
if
would,
there's-
Well, I'll encrypt the file.
Or just do a list of keys and see what.
Yeah, but I wanna try and just put in Tony and see if it finds you. And then, let's see. Dash
While you're
ES,
doing that,
dash R Tony.
You said you can only do a file, zip files included?
Yeah, you can do zip or tar file.
Yeah.
So you can take an entire folder, tar it down, and compress it, you know, and then you encrypt that file, and then only, so say you have your whole business plan, you know, which is 500 files in text or LibreOffice documents or whatever, and you can encrypt that all in one file.
Along with that question, as the files get longer, does the encryption, decryption time increase drastically or just slightly?
Just slightly, because it uses the lower bit encryption to actually encrypt the size of the file, and the high bit encryption is done just on that random key that it creates during encryption.
The random key is the public or the private?
It's random. It's neither. It's a
It's
one-time.
an additional.
Right, yeah, it's additional info that it uses to encrypt, so that's where it makes it even harder to decrypt, or to brute force to try to decrypt files. And that's why it's so wide, or so light opposed to other systems. Anyway. So then the next thing you wanna do is get your keys signed. There's a whole idea of the web of trust around using GPG and the public keys. So what you want to do is, the web of trust is, you know, I know these 5 people and I'm going to sign their keys. And then say, I know you guys, but, you know, one other person, you know, Jim, knows them too, but doesn't have my key. And he sees 2 other Tonys out there, but he sees Jim and
Sees them out there.
on the key server.
On the key server, okay.
Yeah, I'll go through, I can actually do a demonstration also about how to find keys using the GUI version. Seahorse is what I use on my computer. But along with that, it shows who
Seahorse
signed
is
those keys.
to find the public keys.
Right.
Is that what AGP is for?
No. Yes, AGP can also do that. AGP is the main is like a key ring for your Android system. So you go out and search, you tell AGP where the key server is, you tell them, search this key server for Tony Bemus, and it'll bring up all the Tonys and all the Bemuses. Or if you put in that 8 character, it'll bring up everybody that has that 8 characters in their fingerprint. So the way to get your keys signed is that you can do a key signing party or people you already know. So say if it's here, just people we know, we each sign our keys. But you go to a big conference and you want to get your key signed by as many people as you can, then you can have a party. And with that party, you're going to want to have a piece of identification that everybody accepts. So here in Michigan, I would accept the Michigan driver's license. If I'm going to Canada or I'm going to over to Europe, I don't know what their driver's license looks like, so I would accept a passport. Something that is widely known. I mean, if I was doing it at my work, I would accept the work ID badge. And then along with that identification, then you need that person's key fingerprint. Right.
Tony, so I want to insert a question. I'm not trying to be stupid or anything, but
sure.
There's a lot of companies, a lot of people in the world, right? So
okay.
There's possibly chances you want to do business with people you don't know, you don't have any type of relationship with. So is there a solution for that? Is there a way of 2 companies that want to do business together to somehow communicate their keys and do that web of trust?
Key servers. That's the whole idea with key servers. Is you don't have to know each other. If you know the person you want to send it to, you go out and grab their public key from the key server. And so, say Leo Laporte is a large name. A lot of people know him. He has a ton of people that signed it. And there's probably people posing as Leo Laporte. Also, there's multiple keys out there. So you would look for somebody that has signed his key. So that's another way to look at it.
If you trust that person and that person knows Leo Laporte.
Right. And it's not by default.
Yeah.
It's not by default. So if Jim signed my key, it doesn't mean that he trusts Matt Enders. It just means that both Jim and Matt trust me. That's really what it means.
There's also that level of trust.
Yes.
If you have ultimate trust, I absolutely know that it is you or not.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Through that signing.
And that's where you can do, if you know somebody personally, you can say ultimate trust. If you just did through a key signing party and a driver's license, you can say a low level of trust.
So when it is between 2 different entities, so is there a encoding standard that's what you mentioned?
An including standard?
I think that's all included as a part of the key generation.
It doesn't automatically include everybody underneath that or everybody associated with that person. Is that what you mean? Or that company, like say Ford has a key, and then you say I automatically trust all Ford employees. It doesn't work like that. It's individual people. I suppose a company could have a GPG key, but it doesn't work like that. I don't think it's not a tiered system like that.
There is
use the same price.
so it's there is going to be like a localized key which would be shared globally. That's it.
Right. Well, it's locally cached, and
Because
it's held out.
if I'm doing with say if something's going on with say GM itself, and so because within GM they have several offices all over, right? So this could be a situation where they want to circulate the first generated things, like the first generated key to all other servers.
It's possible, and maybe it goes back to what Jim was talking about earlier, that like packages and being sent out, that those can be authenticated using GPG. And so if you're receiving files from GM, you want to make sure it's from GM instead of from some random person in India. Then they can send it, you can use GPG to verify that, as long as GN has has
That's
signed it.
complex, it's gonna take long, but I agree on the first point, like you said, so I got to ensure.
Yeah, the biggest thing and what I wanna focus on right now is one-on-one communication using GPG. So at the key signing party, you wanna bring, like you said, an ID that everybody knows, and print off copies of your public key. You can do the full public key, which prints off of a full-size sheet of paper. Or you can do just the fingerprint of the key, which this is the entire fingerprint of a key. And that's not my key, because you can see right here, it's not the same as what I showed earlier.
You don't want to do 2 requests, so.
Right. Yeah. But to be able to get your key fingerprint, you can export it into a text file. So you can say, GPG, export just my fingerprint using this key, which we set up in the environment, and into a file. And that's using the command line redirects.
Why are you appending instead of just redirecting?
Because I thought it'd be fun. I don't know, it's just what I typed in. Well, actually, what you could do is, if you do use this append, you could change this, instead of using GPG key, you could use your key ID, and then just keep on changing just the key ID, and then it'll stick the multiple fingerprints in a single file. And then you print that off for as many people as you think is going to be at your key signing party, and then what you do is you have that plus your ID, and you walk along in the line, you say, sign my key, sign my key, sign my key, you know, and there's a little bit more to it, but that's basically it. And the base idea is you don't have your computer there, because you got a bunch of geeks together, it's likelihood of people are going to try to hack into your computer. So you get all these pieces of paper, and you go back home, and then you go through and sign them. Yeah. You could have your computer with you. You can do it on your phone.
Yeah.
It's very easy. Yeah.
Don't take your mic.
Should be bored.
There was a key signing party at PenguaCon.
Was there?
But I don't think anybody went. I was going to go to it, but I got busy with something else. I really wanted to do it, but it wasn't widely published either.
So I'm confused. What are you bringing you're bringing a sheet of paper with?
A sheet of paper with
The fingerprint, not the public key, the fingerprint.
That's the fingerprint of your public key.
That points to your public.
So the way I think it should work is, Tony and I meet up at a key signing party. He hands me his slip of paper that's got that on it, and he shows me his ID. Maybe he'll show me his driver's license and his passport. And I'll look at the passport and make sure the photo matches Tony. I'll look at the driver's license, make sure it matches Tony. And then I'll make a note on that little slip of paper saying, yeah, I trust him. Okay? Then I go home and I import his key from the key server. And I look at the fingerprint on the key that I downloaded and compare it with the fingerprint on the piece of paper that I have. If they match, I trust Tony's. I trust that what I just downloaded belongs to Tony Bemus. And then you're going to show the command you run to actually sign that.
No, I'm gonna do it on the GUI version because
That's fine. That's fine. I will tell my key ring that I trust that key, and so that is really Tony's key, and I'm good to go. I can encrypt messages to Tony and trust that when Tony sends me a message, it came from him.
So at a key signing party, you're going with people that you're going to be sending email to.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, potentially you would, but
or data files.
Or data files. But the whole idea is to get your key signed to verify that there are people that have met you,
right,
and verifies that you are who you say you are, and each person is going to be listed there saying, yes, he says he's Tony.
So when I go to
I've met him.
When I go to the key server and download Tony's key, I can see who signed Tony's key, right?
Right.
And if I see my friends in that list and they trust Tony, that gives me a greater sense of confidence that I can trust Tony, even if I've never met him.
Not that you can trust him, but the individual who owns the government issued ID.
Yes.
Is the individual who has access to
Yeah,
that key.
yes, that I can trust that key belongs to Tony.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so again, this, and what we're saying back here is that there could be lots of people having this 8-character number right here. But that 8-character number is really only a very little bit of your entire fingerprint.
Right.
So what you can do you could say, read this off, and when you search for, you can search for an 8-character thing, and only, 10 people are gonna show up. Or unless you want to type out the entire fingerprint. It's up to you.
This might seem like a strange path, but if you go like the forensics and stego side of things, like take a JPEG image for example. You can open up in a hex editor and you're gonna get probably 3 megabytes of just lines of hex code. Could you essentially apply the same thing to say a JPEG image?
You can encrypt a JPEG. You say you want to look at the key?
Could you just, could you encrypt the actual hex code of the JPEG image and then send it as, say, a text file, and then the person on the other end decrypts it? Would it come out the same, like that?
It would,
Okay.
yeah. Because once it's encrypted, it comes back to the original state, and that hex is representation of that picture. You can also dupe the image, any file. It doesn't have to be a text file. It can be an image. It can be a compressed archive. So, yeah. And then you can use it set up with your email. I use Evolution, so I know it works pretty well with that. You can use it with Kmail, which is the default mail client for KDE. And then Claws Mail, Webmail, Mud, and Thunderbird. The Thunderbird one, I've heard a lot of people have issues with it. It's just, there's funny quirks. It still works, but it's sometimes it encrypts using there's a backup key or a secondary key it uses instead for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, to set up, or
Google just announced, Google announced that they're gonna have a plugin for Chrome and a hook into Gmail so that you can use GPG with Gmail, and they're releasing, I think they've already released the source code to the plugin, so you can see the plugin and trust that it works. Unfortunately, you'd have to be running Chrome and
Right.
Gmail to take advantage of it.
well, there are multiple Chrome extensions that will do that. It's just the Google one will probably work the best out of other ones.
I would.
And if you can see the code, then you can verify that they're not actually doing something in the background.
Yeah.
So then you go and collect.
Chromium.
I think don't know.
Anything else has got to scrape essentially the Gmail, and what they're gonna do is give you they're gonna put an extension into Chromium, or into Chrome, and then utilize that from Gmail. And so Gmail will be integrated with it. Anything else is basically gonna go scraping through HTML and Gmail and do it. And so,
But with the source code, it shouldn't be long before somebody's got to plug in for Firefox to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So what you'll have then is public keys from any number of people you correspond with, is that right? And when you send them an email, is it gonna automatically then encrypt them according to that public key and send it out? Is that the?
Yeah, well, that's your mail client does that for you. You don't have
Right.
to when you stick in the email address, it looks through your key ring.
And sees if it has
who
a
has
public
this
key
email
for that
address,
person.
and
I
it
think you
encrypts
have
it
a
with that
choice
key.
of saying whether to automatically encrypt for that recipient.
Right.
And if you'd have to send other people your public key, and then the stuff that they'd be sending would be encrypted.
Yeah, you
according
can
to
send
your
it
public.
out. The easy way is to have them look for you on the key server.
What
it
happens
could
if-
also depend upon like the protocol. So, like we were discussing, so.
Right,
It
that's.
could vary from the protocol, right? So if I'm using SMTP, then it could be.
That doesn't matter, the protocol that's the mail server's using, or that your client is using, because your client is doing the encryption and then sending it.
That's all right, transport message.
All the protocol sees is the encrypted message.
Right.
And it's just an attachment, really, it's not even like a code
There
attachment.
could be like encryptions built into the protocol also.
Well, there's SMTP over SSL, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, that's different.
That
So-
just encrypts it on the wire.
And really, that's only encryption between you and your mail server.
Yeah.
Once it leaves the mail server, it's unencrypted.
Yep.
Unless there's more encryption there, but that's no guarantee.
Right. Right.
What happens if you have multiple people in your queue? Does it send each one the encrypted using their public key?
Yeah.
It encrypts, yeah, so if, say I'm sending one message to 5 people, it encrypts each one, for each person, encrypts it separately and sends it. And then
Obviously,
their
that
mail
co-
client will read through that saying, this is the one for me, encrypts it and shows it to you.
Obviously, then it takes a lot longer for you to send that message.
Still pretty quick.
Well, it's still pretty quick,
But you're sending one copy per, you have to transfer outbound a completely different message.
Five separate.
If you're,
One times
if you're using
five.
text files or just an email message, then it'll be fairly quick because it's a small file. If you're trying to encrypt and send it, a 300 meg file, then it's gonna have to send out, to 5 people, it's 1,500.
Well,
It's a gig
5
and a half.
pictures will probably kill a few mail servers, so.
Yeah,
Take a while to get them
that's a
all
whole
up
other
the
issue.
line.
George, were you gonna say something?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say that the headers don't get encrypted though, right? So
No, you're
it will
right.
still say
So they can
to
still see
a terrorist.
the metadata is still there, right?
It's from another terror, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Metadata is still there, so they can see that you're sending an encrypted message to some random person that they probably deem as a terrorist.
Subject as well is clear text.
Right, yeah, that metadata is in clear text. Anybody can read that. Again, unless your connection and all mail server connections in between are encrypted.
Would there be any classification
No,
of the metadata?
don't worry, NSA has the server now.
Is there,
It's like one set of the data to the metadata or the classified thing. One thing will just say that being transmitted data and other thing will be.
I'm not sure what you're getting at. If you all are using the same mail server, then your connection to that, as long as you trust everybody else is using encryption to that server, are you talking about like a standard between sending encryption between mail servers, or? I'm not sure where you're going with that.
So between servers and ultimately.
It's possible, but it's not widely used. There is a standard, and I'm not sure what it is because I don't run a mail server. Again, this is mainly on 2 people communicating.
Oh, we're doing the to and from then. Is there a method, you have a boss, you have a receptionist, and you send him an email? She has to open it, read the first paragraph, find out whether he's interested or not?
If she has his public or his private key, then she can do that.
No.
If she has it,
He
that's
doesn't
the
want
only-
her to read the substance of
Oh.
it, he just wants her to sort it.
Then
That is a terrible situation.
Well, no, you could use me sending it to the boss. I would have to put some kind of message in the subject line, because the subject line is still clear text, so she'd be able to read that.
Or
But
encrypt
she
the
doesn't know
message and
which one.
attach it just attach it as a file.
Yeah, the
So you got your body of the message plus an encrypted attachment.
Right.
Anybody can take that.
All right, so K-mail takes a couple more steps.
So what about when I
That's how you
send
do
my
it.
mother, who's not, anyone that I'm communicating with has to do the same thing, has to set this up.
Actually, the
to
very first
receive.
setup is complex for a few. Like with the evolution, it's fairly easy as long as you have your own key. So what I would do is I would go to my mom's computer, create the key for her, send it out to the public key server, set up her mail client, and then I can walk away and she and I can send mail encrypted. There's nothing else she has to do other than say, send Tony a message. I don't know why we want to encrypt my recipes, but here you go. And then she can send it, or
It's a secret recipe.
Secret family recipe.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola.
Baked bush beans, So
But I can have people I send encrypted.
you have to trust that they can
messages
set
to,
it up.
But I can also send unencrypted to other people.
Yeah, it's not an all or nothing. It's you choose the individual people to encrypt it to.
So basically, you could set it up so that messages I send to him are encrypted to him I encrypted, but to the rest of the people it's not encrypted.
It's
and it'll
per
automatically
message. It's actually per
take
message.
Per
It's not
email
per
address,
person.
right.
It's per the message. So I can send you 2 unencrypted messages, and the next one I can send encrypted, and then I can send you 2 more unencrypted. It's every single message you send, you tell when you want it encrypted or not, and that's part of your mail plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't you take a file, encrypt it with some recipient's key, and then put that in a file and encrypt that with the person's key, and then the secretary would encrypt it, look at what's left, and then
send it on.
It should be forwarded, send it on, where the boss will unencrypt the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's
So,
it's completely possible.
Boy, that sounds like a lot of clicking to me.
Yeah, that's.
Just because the boss doesn't want to read his own email, huh?
Yeah, I mean, the boss should just read his own email.
That's right, that's all it is,
In these mail clients, when you press the encrypt button, it sets a little header and a footer, and then gobbledygook in between.
Yeah.
If you type text in front of the gobbledygook, PGP says that's fine. All it cares about is that you don't
What's in
touch the
between?
message in between the header and the footer. So you can put your subject. and
Yeah.
abstract.
Again, it's gonna be a specific use case, you know, I mean, I don't email people that don't read their own emails. But, you know, so you would have to just, per use case, you'd have to change whatever you wanna do with that.
When you said paste the key ID, that should, you said on evolution. Paste your key ID,
Here, I'll show you.
meaning your private key.
Have to get somebody to sort it out.
Yeah, well, it's your private key ID. Well, your key, a public and private, has the same key ID. So your key ring knows that you have your keys in there. So say in my email here, we go up to, now I have to remember how to do it. Preferences.
You're
It's not on the
still
screen
showing
yet.
the presentation.
Oh, sorry. All right, let's see.
There we go.
I tried to set this up phone, but for some reason my computer won't do it. You know, it's, I don't know what, it's like a driver, because I just loaded Mint 17 on here, and it does this, but when I had Mint 14 on here, it worked great. It's the same computer, same hardware. Anyway, so we go up to edit, yeah, preferences.
That's the problem, new distro needs new hardware.
And you have to do this per your email. So you see I have a bunch of different emails, so this is one way you can use your Gmail with encrypted, not using a web client. You can use, you know, over SMTP or whatever.
You set up evolution, you get Gmail.
Yeah, Evolution, because you can use
I've got Thunderbird.
POP or IMAP.
IMAP is Gmail.
Right. Well, I think yeah, IMAP is the way, and that's how I always do all mine. But anyway, you go down here to security, and that's the key ID right there. So because you see that, doesn't mean that.
Part of your fingerprint, that's the last 8 digits of your.
Right.
That's right, and that's where you're telling Evolution to go to my key ring and use that key to make the encryption. It's just a way to tell it which key to use in your key. That's all it's doing. And it's just a short, easy way to do it.
Okay, we have to set up the key right now.
Right, and that was one of the first slides I said, how you create your key. GPG and the key ring. So let's go to Seahorse, passwords and keys. And this is my passwords and keys, and now it all of a sudden looks different because we're on a new version of So these are, see, I have my key here, and I have other people that I know.
Where's your key?
Well,
The very top one, Anthony Bemus, that's me. And right here it says personal PGP key. All the rest of these are GPG keys, or
Those are
PGP keys.
public.
Right. Yeah, these are all
Personal means
public.
private.
Mine, this includes both my public and private keys. this shows people that have signed my keys. Right? No, did I hit the wrong one?
You got names and signatures, but it all looks like the same person.
Oh, these, yeah, this right here, Alexander Robinson, he signed my key. So that's why it's showing it here. So this
Yeah,
is,
3 times.
this is me, this is my Bemus Online email, this is me, this is my Gmail.
Oh, okay.
This is me, this is my SMLR email, my podcast, and, you know, my Bemus hosting email.
Go ahead and re-import, you'll get another one.
Yep, so what you do is you come up to sync and publish keys. And sync. And I don't know how long it takes, and we're not getting a status bar, so hopefully it was fast. And because I don't have this person, so I suppose that's why it's showing
Right,
unavailable. There's another way to go see it if you're not looking here. But so let's say I go down to Kevin's.
We're in Seahorse now.
This is Seahorse, right, for Evolution. Or, I'm sorry, Seahorse with GNOME. Right, but you can use Seahorse with KDE if you like Seahorse better than the KDE version. It's whatever you want to use.
You just get extra libraries.
And that, yeah, that's a whole nother
Where am I getting
conversation about
Seahorse?
packages. Huh?
Where am I getting Seahorse?
Apt-get install. What's on your computer, your home computer?
Ubuntu.
Then you would
Ubuntu
have
and
Seahorse.
Windows.
It's
That's
already
already
installed in
used for
Seahorse,
the
so you don't have to
package
install it.
manager.
It's there, they call it the passwords and keys manager. So it's already there, you can just start using it.
Oh, they install it by default?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is where I'm looking at Kevin's key, and under the trust here, this is where I can sign it. And I trust Kevin, and,
I wouldn't.
you know, and then this is where you do how you indicate how marginal or whatever.
I know him a little bit.
Back down, see what else you got
I
there.
signed this a long time ago, and at the time.
Yeah,
it
drop
was
down that
marginal.
list, just.
Yeah,
Actually,
really?
you wanna know the whole reason why I did marginals, because he created a key, lost his private key, and could no longer use it. So I had signed that one, and then he said, oh, no, use this one instead, so I signed this marginally until I could verify that that was the one he actually uses, and then I just never went in. And
Drop down that list, just so we can see what the other choices are. Yeah.
So there's full, and so marginal is, you know, it's in the middle, but, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can sign and not trust the person, so that's the.
So is it your trust that's only good until November 2nd? Or is that the key's only good until November 2nd?
The key is only good until November 2nd.
Okay.
I believe. Well, I would think it's.
No, because
That'd be a pain to have to do new ones.
I think you can extend it.
You can extend it, but
I
then people have to
understand.
re-sync those keys back in, but again, you just hit sync, and then you got the new.
But the
expiration
reason
date.
why he does that is because basically the thing about,
If you lose your private key, then after
After that
November,
period of
then,
time, they, yeah.
then, yeah, that key won't show up, or it'll show as expired.
We need to
So-
get moving on here.
Yeah. Already,
Another presentation coming up.
Maybe I should have asked first. So say if you want to send an email, we're gonna say new, we're gonna send it to Kevin. I'm Kevin O'Brien, email address.
yeah, you should fill up Nancy in the box.
And I'm gonna say he should have been here.
Missing you, wish you were here.
And then up here, under options, this is where you can say sign, encrypt, and whatever else. So I could say PGP encrypt, and then send. And I don't know what it's doing now.
This could not set a primary key.
Using public key instead.
No trust.
Maybe, oh, he has different ones for different emails. And it's things like this is where, if you're only using, the person only has one key, you know, makes it easier. So if you're doing this with you set it up for your family, and you only have one key out there, then it's gonna work. Kevin has multiple email addresses, and this is probably his other email address, so I would have to now go back to the key ring, find out which email address is in that key, make sure I'm sending it to that email address, and then it would just encrypt it. So that's a failed demonstration. That's basically how you go about doing it. All right, we're gonna, on my website is my presentation notes. You can go through each one, how to do it, Plasmail, there's an app-kit to install it, and a few things to set it up. Thunderbird uses Ignigmail for the PGP. So basically you install it, and then you go in and you enable it.
Your last name, Thunderbird uses?
Enigmail.
It's gonna be an extension.
E-N-I-G-M-A-I-L.
So where am I getting it?
You go into the Thunderbird add-ons and you would add it under your add-ons.
And Mud, if you like using Mud, you can use GPG with your Mud. And Webmail. This is one for Gmail that I ended up using. It's possible to use it. Like I said, I prefer using the Evolution version. But like I said, there's other Chrome ones, Chrome extensions that work better. And this is where I got most of my information. The Ubuntu help is actually a really step-by-step how to set it up, and it's really easy to use. So if you only want to see one of these, of how to use it, go to the Ubuntu one at the top, and that's the easiest. And then the best way to get this info is on my website, bemushosting.com. And then on the security tab, you'll see I have a link right to it. So you don't have to type out this whole thing to find it, you just bemushosting.com and then do it. And my presentation, I use the strut.io editor, it's impress.js. I think it's cool how it does this.
The different effects.
Right. Yeah, and you can have it spin around, and I'm sure you saw some of them flying back and forth. But again, here's my fingerprint. I'll sign my key. And that's it. Cool.
Thank you, Tony.